your horses there, Scout. This ain't no underrated animation. I would have put it in the title of the video. You may be thinking, what? The fuck are you talking about? Of course this is an underrated animation. Just look at it. It's obscure, it's sophisticated, it's got cult status, it's French, it's Jean-Francois Laguioni, it's animated. This meets the criteria, right? Well, you see, obscurity and cult status doesn't immediately garner the underrated animation title. The film also has to have sound writing to qualify. And believe me, guys, no one wanted this movie to be in that segment more than yours truly. But unfortunately, and it pains me to say this, Les Tableaux / The Painting is not very good. It's a shallow commentary on prejudice and parody, a lackadaisical, at times even confused and aimless narrative, and while the protagonists certainly have potentially compelling arcs, the execution is ultimately fumbled, which is a sentiment that can be applied to the whole movie, really. Now, with that said, I must make it clear that I do get so much enjoyment out of this film. I love the classical score, the dreamlike surrealist visuals, the atmosphere, aura, and tone this movie emanates. It's got a shitload of charm and appeal with its style, and like I've said before, I very much love Laguioni's artistry. But does it have good writing overall? Does it have good direction overall? Well, let's dive in. And unfortunately, this is gonna have to be one of those full spoilers ahead type deals. Sorry, but it's kinda necessary in order for me to dissect what's fully wrong with it. However, it's only an hour and 20 minutes, and it's available on YouTube for free, or on Canopy, or to pirate. So if you wanna watch it, go right ahead. We enter the world of The Painting, where Lola ever so kindly fills us in on the lore of this realm. This secluded society is divided into 3 classes: the Alduns, the Halfies, and the Scribbles. The Alduns are fully painted figures who live a life of luxury, and are pompously prejudiced against the half-painted Halfies and pencil-sketch Scribbles. They treat them as subhuman, and exclude them from their little clubhouse. So, yeah, pretty obvious metaphor. And it's a very oversimplified view of discrimination, which is fine for the kid audience that may very well watch this. However, as I'll detail, the film never goes beyond this surface-level depiction. But there's one Aldun who sticks up for the Halfies. His name is Ramo, and he's actually in love with a Halfie named Claire. Because of his empathy towards the less fortunate, he's ultimately shunned away by the Alduns to live in the tattered ruins the others are forced to endure. Not only that, but one of the Scribbles, Gum, gets brutally trampled and stomped on by the Alduns, and ruthlessly thrown off the balcony of the castle. Okay, wow, actual fucking murder. We're starting off strong. So Lola, Ramo, and a Scribble named Quill decide to go on an adventure beyond the painting and hopefully find the painter to get him to finish his masterpiece. Not a bad setup, honestly, especially considering that each of the 3 main characters have a collective goal and individual goals for taking part in this journey. Ramo wants to finish painting his girlfriend so she can finally feel good about herself, Quill wants to bring his dead friend back to life, and Lola is an existentialist who wants to understand the universe she's a part of. Lots of potential here for good, meaty character development. And the movie will take advantage of maybe, 5-10% of that potential. We don't really get arcs with these characters, just deliverance. Ramo wants to help his girlfriend, and he does. Quill wants to bring Gum back to life, and he does. Lola wants to explore and learn about the universe she's a part of, and she does. They all want to be treated equally by the Alduns, and then they are. Nothing is really explored about these characters in between their respective setups and payoffs, and the movie delivers its payoffs without caring whether or not it's earned them. That's not to say they don't have personalities. They do. It's just, this is not a very complex roster. Ramo isn't terrible, but he's a very basic main character, hero, protagonist guy. He's the only Aldun that wants equality. He wants to help his girlfriend by finishing her face, and somehow he keeps getting separated from his friends throughout the story, so he has to keep getting them back, which is, that's pretty lazy writing. I mean, he's likable enough and by no means intolerable, but he's just not all that interesting. He doesn't go through any big character change either, which is not to say I have a problem with him being a static character, but you can still explore a static character. And while Quill has an excellent motivation for meeting the painter and is 100% justified in his disdain for the Alduns, his character in the narrative acts more as a pawn that Lagione moves to wherever he conveniently needs to be. He has no real agency and no real arc of his own. However, I must mention his best moment in the story is when he gets the portrait of the painter to bring Gum back to life. Not as an Aldun, but as the scribble he always was. I really, really like that moment, and I think it's super effective, but it's unfortunately ruined by the, unfortunate finale, but I'll get to that later. And when it comes to Lola, I do appreciate her unwavering curiosity and fascination for the world, despite the hardships she faces on a daily basis from the Alduns. It is quite a likable and tangible trait to latch onto. She's excited about learning new things and is very open to new experiences. This could be a potential trait to explore about her character, but the film never goes that far. All it really leads to is her getting separated from the group time and time again, and Ramo has to wrangle everyone back. Her best moment is arguably when she meets the painter at the end, but again, that's something I'll get into later. So yeah, evidently, character is pretty thin. Now I want to be clear. Thin character is not necessarily bad character, but because there's barely any substance for me to dissect and analyze, it's kinda hard for me to think of anything meaningful or worthwhile to say about the characters. But the development is far from the biggest problem this film has. I would say the biggest failings of this film are its narrative and the handling of its themes. As I mentioned before, the narrative is fairly lackadaisical and aimless, and while it certainly pays off its setups, they're not very rewarding payoffs. It offers quick and easy solutions to its problems, but considering the implications of the world building, it begs for a more nuanced approach. A good example of this is the Little Drummer Boy's story. He resides in a painting about two warring factions. He decides he wants nothing to do with this world, so he runs off with Lola on her adventure. And in keeping with the thin character work, we only get crumbs of insight into his opinions on his world, his personality, his aspirations, but no real meat. He's just kind of an agreeable passenger in the story. But near the end of the narrative, once the portrait of the painter supplies our main characters with pouches of paint to bring back to their respective worlds, the drummer boy uses this paint to color both factions of soldiers purple. So they can't fight anymore. Because they're both purple. Hooray! We fixed the world! No more war! Man, I wish it was that easy in real life. Guys, you're literally both purple. You have to get along now. So, not a very satisfying story thread. But the fuckery doesn't stop there. Next up, we got these little bitches who I will refer to as the Death Agents. When our main characters make their way into a painting depicting Venice, they end up, once again, getting separated in the town's festivities and are tracked down by the Death Agents. Who are the Death Agents? What are the Death Agents? And why do they want to kill our main characters? Well, the movie has no interest in answering these questions, so all the audience can do is speculate. Seriously, they're just incidental antagonists hell-bent on killing the characters. There's nothing else to them. They follow our group of MCs around throughout the middle portion of the story, and just when you think they're gonna do something of value, they die like nothing. Really, I'm not kidding. They get pushed off a ledge and then they disappear into thin air. What the hell is this movie? If you want me to write the film for the writer, the best explanation I got is that these guys keep different painted figures from invading other paintings. But again, that's mere theorization and speculation. The movie does not supply any answers. These Death Agents will perplex me till my dying day. Next, a rather dismal implication of the world building, the destroyed paintings. As the other characters get lost in Venice, Quill and the drummer boy venture through the painter's studio and find a graveyard of destroyed and discarded paintings. This is a pretty horrific discovery the characters make because, in this universe, a destroyed painting is tantamount to the end of the world for the denizens of said painting. Quill and the drummer boy's reaction to this is appropriately portrayed as terrified, but once they reunite with Lola and Ramo, they bring it up once, briefly mention that it sucks, and then we go right back to the central story. And lo, the destroyed paintings are never talked about again. This is what really grinds my gears about this film. How inconsequential these story threads are. There's no thought or care put into how they naturally weave into the overall narrative. They're just put there because the director must have thought, hey, that's a cool idea, but had no intention of ever expanding on it. And as a result, there's no real stakes in the story. You can't just throw bullshit in the story and expect it to not affect the world building, themes, characters, or the flow of everything. You have to seriously think about the implications of what you're writing. Unfortunately, this film is not interested in doing so, and as much as it may want to be, it's seriously not that deep. Which leads us to the absolutely botched themes and the very clumsy ending. There's an obvious theme of prejudice bad, which, yeah, obviously, but like I've said before, it never goes beyond that initial statement. Instead, it just hammers home time and time again how terrible the Alduns are. They kill Gum, they kidnap and imprison Claire, and torch the hideout the Halfies live in. The Alduns are one-dimensional, mustache-twirling assholes that only serve to drive home the very ham-fisted theme. And just like everything else in this movie, it offers a quick and easy solution to the prejudice the Halfies and Scribbles face without any whim as to whether or not it's earned. In the final act of the film, our group of main characters return to their painting with the aforementioned pouches of paint. The Halfies and Scribbles use this to fully color themselves into Alduns as well, and when the high society sees the Halfies as Alduns, they immediately accept them with open arms, like nothing ever happened, in a very then all the reindeer loved them type situation. And I gotta be honest, guys, this shit rubs me the wrong way. These people tried to kill you. They were about to publicly execute Ramo and Claire before the cavalry arrived. They brutally stomped Gum to death, and literal God had to bring him back to life. And now, all is forgiven. Water under the bridge, no worries, barely an inconvenience. I'm sorry, I don't accept this. This is a horrible and not to mention a rather immature way to wrap up a story about discrimination. It's completely devoid of nuance, subtlety, complexity, or tact. Why can't we all just get along, guys? Come on. What a horrible execution of a central theme. Oh, and the headmaster guy, the one that enabled all this shit, yeah, he just gets paint thrown on him. Comeuppance, I guess. Theme is butchered to hell, narrative is clumsy, world building is nonchalant, character is thin, and this all equates to a very flimsy parable. It has inklings of potential to explore complex aspects of the human condition, but it never fully commits to that potential. It just points to the ideas it has and says, yeah, that's a thing. The film is pretty frustrating in that regard, because I sincerely wanted it to reach the heights I know it's capable of reaching, but it just misses the mark. I can't defend these problems. They are quite extensive and quite irrefutable, and no amount of aura is gonna change that. This leads us to the epilogue of the film, where Lola once again exits the world of the painting and ventures outside the studio, where she meets the painter himself. Originally, I was really excited for this scene and was expecting it to be the saving grace of the movie, but unfortunately, it's also not very substantive. The painter and Lola mainly just briefly recap the central conflict of the story and how it was resolved. However, Lola asks the painter why he abandoned them and never finished the painting, and the painter, keeping with the nonchalant, non-committal nature of this movie, says, "Sometimes an unfinished drawing is more effective than a finished painting." Which, I mean, yeah, sure, but given how you're reacting to Lola and how you talk about your other paintings, it seems that you're aware that your creations are sentient. So you must have known about the horrible class system that emerged in one of your paintings. You had every opportunity to step in and set the record straight. Why didn't you? Wait, is that the point? Is this about how we as a divided society rely on the answers and guidance of an indifferent God who has no interest in tending to the creations he gave life to? Is Lola the representation of a rebellious agnostic who looks for answers of her own accord instead of waiting for things to change? Of course! The central prejudice and discrimination theme serve as a red herring for the actual theme, which is the relationship between humanity and God. How could I have missed it? And the only salvation in a world abandoned by God is to take charge and conform to the status quo so that everyone will like you, because what you were before was an inferior, subhuman piece of shit. Wait, I think that got away from me. Lola then walks off into the vast fields, hoping to find more answers about the universe. I sure hope a bird doesn't whisk her away and eat her. This scene could have been one of the best scenes in the movie, but instead, just like the rest of the film, it's kind of a nothing burger. I really want this movie to be great. I so want it to be one of the most slept-on films of all time, but it's just not properly hitting any of the elements of storytelling. And it's really pissing me off. You got all this potential just fucking sitting there, and you're just refusing to touch it. This whole film feels like a missed opportunity. It's got all the good intentions in the world and all the style and panache out the ass, but it's got such surface-level substance and very weak development. And this is why it ultimately didn't make the cut for an underrated animation. I can work with problems and shortcomings here and there. They're not deal breakers, but when you fail to deliver on character work, story, theme, and even world building, then what do I have left to praise aside from the visuals? And yes, the visuals are amazing, but visuals alone do not make a movie. It's such an unfortunate case study. I really thought this film could go the distance when I first saw its trailer. I thought, oh, hot bollocks, this has to be an underrated animation. You can imagine my disappointment when I finished it. Oh, what a tragedy indeed. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the final scene. It's not terrible, but it's nothing to write home about either. Could have been a lot better, honestly. Kind of like the rest of the movie. Anyway, concluding thoughts time. This movie makes me frustrated because I want it to be one of the best. But it's not. It's very blasé, inconsequential, and flimsy. If there was ever a film that needed a drastic rewrite, it's this one. I can feel that there's a great film somewhere in here and it's screaming to come out, but it's cursed to stay inside this imperfect husk. Jean-Francois Lagioni. I love you. I really do. And I think you have a voice worth listening to. But your writing, man. Your script writing needs some serious work. It's such a wumbo job at times. Like, he's an oddball for sure, and I think that's part of what makes him great. It's just, he needs more people to say no to him. It has interesting ideas and concepts, but never fully elaborates on them. I was hoping for a hidden gem, but all I got was fool's gold. Now, with all that said, as weird as this may sound, I still recommend at least one viewing of this film. It's an interesting spectacle, and you'll more than likely get something out of it. It may not be the masterpiece I desperately believe it could have been, but for what it is, I still get a good amount of surface-level enjoyment from it. Flaws and all. I don't think it's objectively very good, but subjectively, I still have a soft spot for it. And there you have it. The Painting. Les Tableaux. I give it a 57 out of a possible 142 stars, and I can't wait for the sequel, The Painting 2, Taking Back Manhattan. Thanks for watching, and always remember to save your virginity for Jesus.